Well, hello everyone and welcome to the Season 2 premiere of AZ Sportsbox Weekly. I'm Caleb Bouchy, that's Will's Rice, and after 5 months of doing the show remotely on Zoom and quarantine, we are back.
We're back, baby!
In person, in studio, in a brand spanking new studio here. This is a brand new technologically advanced studio here in downtown Phoenix, and I'm excited to kick off this new era. Will's, I hope you're feeling the same.
I'm excited for a rebranding of AZ Sportsbox and all the new content we're going to put out. It's definitely going to be a big year for all of us here.
And what a time to start the new season with an exciting time in Arizona sports. Both good and bad. The Suns and the Coyotes had an unexpected end to the season that no one really wanted when it comes to the fans. And the Cardinals we got football season starting in less than 14 days.
Yeah, crazy.
College football season isn't going to be happening as well as all the college fall sports, and we'll get to that hopefully in later shows. But why don't you start us off with some MLB baseball and the Arizona Diamondbacks?
Yeah, so we're going to kick it off right with the Diamondbacks finishing their 4-game series, home series against the Colorado Rockies. They come into this game on a 7-game losing streak, which in this 60-game season is the equivalent to about a 21-game losing streak in a normal season. Diamondbacks are major slumping, but they turned to ace Zach Gallen to try to shed this losing streak.
And that losing streak came to an end this past Friday after hosting the San Francisco Giants in a 3-game series, winning Game 1 7-4. However, after that, the team lost 2 straight games as well as the entire series to the Giants. Now with the shortened MLB baseball season more than halfway done, the D-backs are looking to make some major roster changes as the trade deadline approaches. Star players like center fielder Starling Marte, closer Archie Bradley, left fielder David Peralta, and left-hander Robbie Ray are all rumored to be leaving Arizona as part of potential trades. A step back this year and rebuilding their roster could allow the Diamondbacks to redirect some of those resources towards future seasons. Dealing one or more of their position players could allow them to open up more opportunities for younger players, and it could allow them to reshape a lineup that has suffered for years from the kind of weeks-long offensive blackout in which they are currently stuck in. The trade deadline is set to end today at 1 p.m. The Arizona Coyotes had the most unexpected season that no one saw coming. They are not mathematically out of the playoffs, but they are most likely not going to make the playoffs, barely missing it. But thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic and the formation of the first and possibly only time ever of the Stanley Cup qualifiers, the Coyotes upsetted the Nashville Predators in the qualifying round to advance to the quarterfinals, only to be eliminated by the Colorado Avalanche 4-1. To break it all down, we got Jude Binkley here. And before we get into all this, Jude, I hope you love this new studio. It's great to have you back.
It's great to be back.
Oh yeah, it's exciting to be back. But let's talk about the Coyotes' end to the season. I mean, it wasn't the best ending, but I think everyone was glad they made the playoffs. No one thought that was going to happen. And they had Darcy Kemper, who pretty much tried to carry this team on his back, even though he was the best goalie in the NHL. Didn't end up working out, especially those last 2 games were rough. But not only that, a lot of controversial stuff happened during that time. John Chaika, the team president, left unexpectedly, and I thought that statement that the team made was probably one of the most harsh statements in a professional way that they did it. And now, the most recent news, they're forfeiting 2 draft picks. This is absolutely crazy. And what can you tell me about all this? What are the specific details you can give me?
It's been a very turbulent time for the Coyotes this past month, a lot of loss, and that now includes 2 upcoming draft picks, the 2nd pick in this year's 2020 NHL Draft, as well as their 1st pick next year in 2021. And this all comes from infractions from NHL Combine testing. They were working out with about 20 Canadian Hockey League players, which you can't do before the Spring Combine with an individual franchise. Now, the Spring Combine didn't happen this year, but this still goes back to during the season when John Chaika was in charge. You talked about how he left, but he did say that that was for unrelated reasons. And for the time, it's going to be Steve Sullivan as the interim GM, who's going to have to lead the team through this. Now, losing 2 draft picks is very big, but this could have been much worse for the Coyotes because in the NHL's rules, they say that infractions like this could be a minimum fine of $250,000 per infraction. So Gary Bettman decided that he wasn't going to put down any financial penalties because of these specific circumstances, but it is going to be very difficult draft-wise for the future in the Coyotes. This year, they're going to be without their first 4 picks, And next year in 2021, they may just have one pick through the first 3 rounds. So Steve Sullivan's got a lot to work to do to kind of get this team back on track.
Lots and lots of rebuilding to do. And that's just the least of their worries, because now they got this whole free agency chaos with Taylor Hall possibly leaving, which I think that's a good chance he is leaving, just to be real. But as a fan, that's like heartbreaking to hear. So going into next season, is this team going to be playoff material again, or is it going to be years and years of rebuilding before we see this team getting back into the playoffs?
Well, Coyotes fans, at least they had their one playoff appearance the first time in 8 years, so that might be enough to hold on for a little time. But there is so much parity in the NHL, sometimes it's hard to tell. I think the Coyotes have a great goalie rotation. The Kraken will probably take one of their 2 goalies, but Kemper, super hot in that series against Nashville, and I think that's one of the main reasons why they were able to pull off the upset. Taylor Hall, I do think he's going to be leaving, but there is some younger talent. Connor Garland, on the big stage, was really able to show off well, and even in those first 2 games against the Avalanche before they fell apart and went 14-2 in those last 2 games, kind of forgot how to play hockey. There are some promising players on this team.
I mean, yeah, no offense, but that team looked like they were wanting to go play golf and not hockey, so it was very unfortunate those last 2 games. But it was definitely, like I said, I think I agree with your point. They made it to the playoffs. No one thought they were going to make it to the playoffs, and it was a shocking playoff run. Even though qualifiers weren't the playoff round, it was definitely an exciting time, and they did it in the bubble. They were entirely on the road, so exciting stuff. Well, Jude, thanks so much for coming on.
It's great to be here.
We'll talk to you more on a separate subject, the Indoor Football League, and we'll get to that later in the show. But thanks so much, man.
Phoenix, Arizona has had an Arena Football League team since 1992. Now currently the Indoor Football League, there are 3 teams in the state of Arizona. In 2019, Tucson added the Tucson Sugar Skulls, and now in a press conference this week, the IFL announced a new team in 2021 joining Prescott Valley. Here's Jude Binkley with the story.
Next season, Arizona will be getting its 3rd team in the Indoor Football League after it was announced earlier this week that the league will be expanding to Prescott Valley. They'll be joining the Arizona Rattlers and Tucson Sugar Skulls as the teams hailing from the Grand Canyon State. With 3 IFL teams in Arizona now, it's clear that the league has been very happy with the market here. The new unnamed team will be playing in the 6,000-seat Findlay Toyota Center, which is where the G League's Northern Arizona Suns played before being purchased by the Detroit Pistons last month. The Prescott Valley franchise will be the 16th IFL team and will be joining the league alongside a team from Columbus. The team hasn't decided on a name yet and will have a community vote soon to help determine what the new franchise will be called. The new Prescott Valley team will take to the field when the 2021 IFL season kicks off next March.
Since we first went into quarantine in March, we introduced a special segment that ended up gaining traction, our special guest of the week, where we brought in popular broadcast and athlete icons from the world of Arizona sports. And now this week in our season premiere, we're proud to announce that we are continuing this segment. And this week, we are bringing in a special guest that might bring a ring to your ears. It's none other than the ASU Cronkite legend, Braiden Bell. Well, for this week on our season premiere episode of AZ Sports Box Weekly, we got yet another ASU Cronkite alum. He was the former Blaze Radio sports director. He's called a number of play-by-play broadcasts for both Blaze Radio and Pac-12 Plus. And recently, he's been the head play-by-play announcer for Cal Baptist basketball, right? Men's basketball?
Yep, that's right. Yep.
All right, well, this is Braiden Bell. Thanks so much for coming on. Obviously, I know this is a huge time we're interviewing you right now because of the WAC conference just pulling fall sports and going to reevaluate for spring. But how are you doing?
I'm doing all right considering all the craziness happening in the world and in college athletics as well. Just trying to enjoy some summer weather and hang in there.
Oh yeah, I bet it's a crazy time right now. It looks like pretty much all the major conferences. It started with the MAC, and now the Pac-12 is canceled, which is a bummer for us here in Arizona. And I believe was it the ACC and is one of the only major conferences that is going to continue playing. Other conferences are still not decided yet. But before I'll get to the whole COVID-19 affecting the whole sports world in your opinion, but kind of telling your story when you first got into broadcasting. When did it all did it start? Like senior year of high school, or did it
Yeah. So that kind of all got started hands-on experience-wise my junior year of high school. Started a club with Killian McClatchy, another former Crown Kite alum. We went to the same high school up here in Utah and called our high school football games and basketball games as well. We didn't call baseball because we both played. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, and I've always known I've wanted to get into broadcasting, so getting some hands-on experience, and then obviously knew I wanted to go to Cronkite. So that's kind of how I got started at the beginning.
I think the biggest thing you're known for, and it's obviously explained in your Twitter user, is that you're big into play-by-play. When you first got into Cronkite, is that something you just knew right out of the gate you wanted to pursue, or was there any other departments you wanted to at least take a stab at?
Yeah, I mean, play-by-play has always kind of been my number one and the thing I love most in journalism, at least. But for me personally, and I think anyone I would give advice to coming up in Cronkite, was just trying to immerse yourself in everything. I did reporting. I wrote for a while, all sorts of different things, anchored as well. And I love all of it. It's all a great time, and it's all different in fascinating ways. But, just the feeling of calling a game and saying he could go, and, all of the fun things that happen, the exciting things that can happen in the spur of a moment while calling the game, that definitely is tops for me.
Yeah, and I remember I kind of talked to you on probably one of your last ASU basketball broadcasts at Desert Financial, or then Wells Fargo Arena as it was at the time. And you said you were done play-by-play for all 4 years during your time at Cronkite. Is that true?
Yeah, all 4 years. So with men's basketball, I got to see Bobby Hurley's first game. It was a loss to Sacramento State, all the way to seeing them beat Kansas 2 years in a row. So it was pretty cool to see the rise, and obviously it's still continuing today.
Yeah, I'm sure that was probably one of your most memorable broadcasts, is that game against KU, especially with everything that was on the line, and KU being the number one team in the country at the time. I'm sure that was exciting. Was there any memorable broadcast outside of KU that was exciting for you? I'm sure Georgia was, because you got to take over Tim Healy.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the Georgia game, obviously special just for me personally, because it was my first professional broadcast. That was great. But the two biggest ones, other than that one, I would say at Kansas, I was lucky enough to be at Allen Fieldhouse, and when ASU kind of pulled one out of the rabbit's hat and upset, they were number 2 at the time then. So I got to be at both Kansas wins. So that was a lot of fun. And just to see Allen Fieldhouse was obviously outstanding. And then, of course, my senior year, the Territorial Cup comeback, 41-40 in Tucson. They were down by 19 heading into the 4th. So obviously as a Sun Devil, that was a lot of fun. And winning down in Tucson and calling that comeback was something I'll definitely never forget. That'd probably be my number one.
Oh, I bet when U of A blew that huge lead, I'm sure that became like the number one meme used by the 942 crew for years.
Yeah, as it should be
today, which is funny. So it's so right. But, kind of going forward, after your time at Cronkite, and I was talking to Chancellor about this last week. A lot of students, when it comes to the time they are about to graduate, they usually announce like where they're going next right before they get the diploma, and they call it quits at Cronkite. But for you, you seem to kind of wait it out for a few months, and instead of, I got to get a job right now, you seem to take things pretty slow. And it wasn't until the start of college basketball season where you announced where your next venture was going to be. What was that process like?
It was agonizing at times. I won't lie to you, waiting. And like you mentioned, seeing so many of my peers getting jobs, and they were obviously all very deserving, but it was tough for me at times. I won't lie. But I was being patient. I wanted to find the right fit. And I also wanted to find something that I knew I would enjoy at a place that I believed in, that was committed to winning and to also, broadcasting as well in general. And I definitely found that in CBU, a school that's fresh up into D1, that really competes well at the level they are in the WAC, with schools like GCU, and an absolutely bonkers environment at times there. And so the fit was just perfect for me there, and it was definitely worth the wait. I'm glad that it did take a little longer instead of just jumping into the first opportunity that I could have had. And it definitely worked out, but it wasn't always easy. There's no doubt about that. And I guess that's kind of what I'd tell, a lot of recent grads or even sports journalists that are going to graduate, whether it's in December or next May. I mean, obviously the job market's extremely tough right now, and things are totally different than even just last year for me. But being patient and realizing that the right fit might not always come right away, that's big, and it's going to affect your overall happiness. And I remember the first time I walked into the arena at CBU, I didn't even really know what CBU was. And I walked in on my job interview and I'm like, what? Like, this is amazing. So really, really happy with that. It turned out, but it definitely was tough at times.
Was there any other colleges or teams that you were considering when you're job hunting?
Yeah, I mean, there were a few offers here and there, definitely different places that I considered. I also thought about going the minor league baseball route, which a lot of my peers have done as well. And that's a great way to get your foot in the door as well. A lot of reps going into that. But, kind of like we talked about earlier, I just love college athletics, especially. And I love being able to do more than one sport. And that's what CBU gave me the opportunity to do. I was going to do baseball and softball for them as well, and then fall sports. But obviously COVID has put a wrench in that. But eventually I'll be able to do all the sports for CBU, and that'll be a great opportunity for me. Men's basketball is obviously a great thrill, and being able to do that definitely made them stand out above the rest.
Yeah, I'm sure the end of your first year probably was the most unexpected one with COVID-19. Did you have plans to, because I don't know where Cal Baptist was going to finish in the season, if they're going to go to the tournament or maybe the NIT or the CIT. What were the postseason plans looking like that first year?
Yeah, so it really is crazy looking back on it now, just how sudden everything came to a close. We won 21 games last year, a very competitive team, finished second in our conference. New Mexico State won the conference, and they were a great team, no doubt about it. So yeah, we definitely had postseason plans, whether it was the CIT, the CBI, whatever it would have been. And we had just finished our regular season down in Texas, playing a conference matchup on a Saturday. We flew home on a Sunday, and then the season was scrapped, I believe, on Tuesday. So we were just on the road, flying around on that road trip. We had gone from New Mexico to Texas and then back to California. So flying all over, staying at several different hotels, and everything was normal. No masks, nothing. I mean, it was, just like old times. And then to see everything shut down as quickly as it did, it was pretty wild. And, it was that shock that everyone felt that was really just wild.
Yeah, the day sports stopped, it's going to be probably the most monumental day in history we'll ever look back in sports. But yeah, that kind of brings me to my next question. When the NBA player Rudy Gobert tested positive, and it created this whole domino effect with all the leagues and all the conference tournaments at the time, just calling an immediate cancellation. Were you, I'm assuming from what you said earlier, you were on the road when that happened?
So we had just barely gotten home. I believe the conference tournaments were probably canceled Thursday, and we had just gotten home on Monday. So I had a couple days, but you probably remember, and everyone that follows the sport closely, you could kind of see that it was going to happen. So it was obviously still a shock just because of how massive it was, but it was something that we kind of all saw coming as soon as the NBA shut down, and then the MLB and NHL and everything that happened so quickly. But yeah, we were back in California when that happened.
What were your thoughts when everything was going to get shut down? Did you think that this whole shutdown would possibly last longer than it did, because it lasted for a couple months, and still some ways it's going to last through fall? But at the time, there were still heavy deliberations on whether the NCAA should have the tournament go on as planned. They obviously, I think the first two rounds they originally planned to not have crowds, but then everything just got downgraded from there. What did you think how everything was going to pan out when you first saw everything just go on the immediate pause?
Yeah, I think the wild part about this entire situation is that none of us really know anything. And we live in a day and age now where everyone loves to be an expert and everyone loves to sound right. And I think that's what kind of made this so difficult, is that, nobody really is an expert. Even the experts occasionally, they're learning things every day as well. So When it first started, I was hopeful that, I was absolutely confident in the NCAA that it was the right move, and the safety of student athletes and fans alike, and staff and everyone involved. That's the most important thing. And I still obviously do agree with that as well. I was hopeful that it would be gone and we would get college football and the rest of the fall sports. Obviously, that's not going to happen for the majority of conferences, like you mentioned earlier. A few are still in it. But yeah, it's a tough time, man. I mean, there's no question about it, for everyone involved in sports, but especially college athletics. And as depressing as it is, and as hard as it is for everyone involved right now, I just know that the day we finally do get to go back out there and play sports again, and call games for my job and everything. I mean, already, let's get it. And that's what I'm going to be saying. There's going to be a lot of woos there on the sideline, and everyone's going to be really excited.
Yeah, and then kind of going back to your opinions on ASU basketball, as you've broadcasted so many games of them at your time at Cronkite. ASU, this is kind of going to be an all or nothing season with Remy Martin coming back and their star recruit Josh Christopher. Now, if everything does get canceled, it is going to be a huge bust for the future of ASU basketball. Do you think this would be a heavy downgrade for ASU, that it would probably be hitting the reset button if everything gets canceled?
Yeah, it would obviously be disappointing, but I think the direction of the program is clearly, just continuing to rise. Day after day, year after year. Bobby Hurley's done just a phenomenal job, and the recruiting has obviously been great, like you alluded to. But I think even if, God forbid, the season is heavily postponed or canceled altogether, and again, I pray that doesn't happen, but it would be very disappointing, obviously, for the program and the fans because of the roster they have right now. But I still feel like this program, even if that were to happen, is in a really good spot. I think Bobby's done a great job, and you look at, the fact that we're in now his fourth, or however many years he's been there now, and they've showed steady improvement nearly every year. And so, yeah, it would be disappointing, but I don't think it would necessarily be a huge derailment of where the program's headed, because I think he's just done such a great job, and the roster is so strong and deep, and they're getting talented transfers, everything like that. I think is just a sign that the program's heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I for sure agree with that. So I will say, though, Bobby Hurley, he's good at pulling off upsets, but usually it's like the game after they becoming the team that gets upset, like a Princeton game, which was the game after KU. So this ASU basketball team seems to be a little bit confusing at times, but surely talented for sure. But moving into the recent news, kind of all the way to now with the WAC canceling fall sports, or I guess more of a postponement. And I don't know if you've heard of Blaine McCormick, but we've had him on.
Of course.
And, he calls minor league baseball games, and they just announced they're going to hold until 2021. And obviously, for play-by-play broadcasters, their career relies on these games being played. And for people like Blaine, I think he's had to go work at a liquor store until everything, goes back to normal. For you, what does that situation look like? Have you had to, kind of transition to a different job outside of broadcasting, or are you just anchoring sports, or how's that going?
Yeah, so there's been several bumps in the road on that as well. My original plan for the summer was we have an off season, obviously, in college sports, just like every other sport. I was going to travel around, maybe to go to, the Midwest, Indiana, something like that. Obviously that all got derailed, but I've been lucky enough with CBU's still giving me some projects to work on, some interviews over Zoom, just like what we're doing here, and some voiceover projects, and helping out the basketball department in several different things, whether it's recruiting or just social media, things like that. So they kept me pretty busy as well. And then, I'm just trying to find supplemental income while I need to. And obviously that's not where any of us want to be. And I can relate to Blaine, no doubt about it. But, it's like what I got back to earlier. When we're finally back calling games, we're going to be so thankful. And I think all of us, whether we're play-by-play or not, if you're an anchor, a reporter, a beat writer, whatever, sideline reporter, anything, it's just going to make us all so much more thankful when we're finally able to put back on the headset or mic up or whatever it is. We're just going to be pumped up about it.
Oh, for sure. I think everyone's love for sports is probably going to be bigger than it's ever been before once everything just goes completely back to normal. So I honestly can't wait for that. And, kind of get into the last question to, wrap things up here. And it's the traditional question. I don't know if you've seen, I've asked pretty much every guest on here, but, for the incoming freshmen and the returning students at Cronkite, it's obviously going to be a difficult year, especially with Pac-12 season being postponed to spring. But, some of these students are only going to be here for the fall semester. This could be their last semester, and there's not going to be much they can try to improve on without these games being played. So what advice would you give any of these students, returning or newbies? Because it's going to be a difficult year for sure, at least different,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that's something that, none of us really know. It's the $1 million question. But I would say, some of the things that you can work on, whether we're in pandemic or not, some of the biggest things that I'd use is advice to incoming students or current students or recent graduates. I don't care who you are, is just to continue to hone in on your craft in whatever way that is. If it's play-by-play, obviously that's tough right now, but there are live sports on. The NBA is going, the NHL is going. Baseball is trying to go. So, if you want to work on your craft, it's an easy way to do it. Mute the game and call it, whether you're sitting on your bed in your living room, whatever. And it might be cheesy and it might be a little tacky, but it's still a rep. And even if you don't want to do that, listen to these pros. Obviously, everyone calling games right now is at an elite level. If they're calling an NBA game, it's going to be a Mike Breen or, a big name like that. Same with MLB and same with NHL and Doc Emmerich. So listen to these guys because they are where they are for a reason. For reporters, for writers, there's kind of the same things I would say. You can still put together a package somehow, find a way. There's still feature stories you can do, obviously different. You're going to have to social distance while you do them, but there are ways you can still do feature stories, and that's a great way to practice. And writing, that might be the easiest thing to still get reps on. Write feature stories, write gamers for things that are happening. Just practice, in every way you can, and don't make excuses is another one, because it's easy to make excuses right now. And I've caught myself making excuses, obviously, over the course of the last few months, but nobody's going to feel sorry for you right now. And it's harsh, but it's true, because we're all going through the same thing. And it's hard for everyone in this industry right now. But I think the people that really love it and believe in it and want to stay with it, it's going to pay off for us down the line. So I think just practicing and honing in on your craft and looking for improvement in whichever way you can. And also, now's a great time, sorry to run on here, but now's a great time to work on your reel, work on a website, something like that, because you're never going to have this much time again. What are we going to do on Saturdays in the fall? I have no idea what I'm going to do. Normally I'm on my couch from 10 a.m. to midnight watching football on Saturdays in the fall. So I don't know what I'm going to be doing. So might as well work on something like that.
Oh yeah, a lot of free time in your hands for sure. So it's it is an incredibly rare time, because everyone's going to be doing this, forever, or at least like the next 50 years or whatever. So, and this time off is extremely rare. So I think that's a good point to bring up. Make the most of it. All right.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much, man, for coming on. I hope everything is going to go well this upcoming fall, making the best of what you have. But we cannot wait to hear you calling play-by-play again, hopefully in the spring or whenever that's going to be. So we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully. We're all hoping so. Thanks a lot for having me, man.
That is all we have for this week. We want to give a special shout out to Braiden Bell. Thanks for joining the show. And thank you everyone for watching our first episode of AZ Sports Box Season 2. We are so excited for the content that's coming out in the future, and we hope to see you every week in the future. For Caleb Bouchy, I'm Wills Rice, and we will see you next week.